Welcome everyone to Breakthrough Leadership, where we help you unlock your purpose, live with passion, and become the leader you were created to be. I'm Matt DeYoung.
And I'm Greg Yates.
We're so happy that you're joining us here today, and this is episode 10. And today we're going to talk about how your indirect impact defines your company's culture, how your indirect impact defines your company's culture. So I know that's a little bit of a squishy concept here, but I think that we're going to get some real concrete points, aren't we?
Absolutely.
So just to make this very, very simple, Greg, we've kind of defined 4 channels of impact. Isn't that right?
Yes, we have.
So awesome. So let's get into them. We'll just jump right in. Would that be good? But before we do, actually, what's a good story that you've had in the past to just kind of define where this can go wrong? Because impact exists whether we like it or not, right?
Yeah, impact exists. We can be in denial about that. If you're a leader, you've experienced this before at some level. And it's hilarious to me, Matt, how this has occurred to me so many times over the years when I didn't realize the conversation I was having had the impact that it ultimately did. I remember one specific instance where, Matt, for me, if I came out of my office, not only did everybody in the entire facility know that I had stepped out of my office, just in case I was out doing a walkthrough or something, but it became also an opportunity for almost guerrilla warfare to come and assault me with ideas and thoughts and get my opinion on things. And, for a long time, I failed to realize the impact that was having. Somebody would say, what do you think about this or that? And I'd say something innocuous like, oh, it sounds like a good idea. Not realizing that I was spending money. Every time I said something like that, I was potentially spending money. I had to be very careful. After a period of years, I learned to say, that's a great idea. Give me a proposal about that. I remember one specific example where nearly $1,000 got spent on something that was never my intent. And of course, there are bigger examples out there where money got spent in big ways just because somebody said, I ran it by Greg and he said he thought it sounded like a good idea. I might have been standing at the urinal, Matt, when I made that decision and I didn't even know I just spent $10,000. But this particular instance, a lady came up to me right as I exited the restroom and she said, hey, Steve said that you really like the idea of us having a company cookbook.
Yeah.
So I've already got these examples of graphics that I've spent time on, a questionnaire for the people in the business, and I was wanting to get your approvals on which one of these things you wanted me to do. She'd already gotten bids. She'd spent days or a week maybe of her time in accomplishing this, and it's being talked about plant-wide, and at that time we had maybe 400 employees. I didn't even realize I'd spent money. That's just an example of the indirect impact that you're having. So what does all this mean, Matt? What it means is we have this great lever, we have this great weapon that if we're not careful is being used against us rather than us using it for our leadership advantage.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So this isn't about selective hearing where you didn't hear the conversation. It truly is that there was a lot more implication to your words, to your actions as a leader in your setting. And every leader, what we're asserting is every leader has some kind of impact, whether they acknowledge it or not, with their words, their actions, all these things we're going to talk about.
Yeah, you said it earlier. Influence is a vacuum. You either fill it or it gets filled.
Yeah, so let's just start with that premise that every leader has some kind of influence. Some of it's direct, that's one type,
right,
but some of it's indirect.
Absolutely.
So today we're talking about that indirect influence and impact that leaders can have. And let's get into what those channels are. We're calling them channels of impact. So one of the first channels, Greg, is going to be the obvious one.
Yeah.
And maybe this is where everybody stops,
Yeah,
where we all stop, which is our words.
Yeah. Yeah, selecting our words intentionally is a big deal. I mean, you may not realize it, but within your organization, you're defining a language that's going to be used. And that language needs to be very strategic, very intentional, which will help define the purpose, the mission of your organization.
Right.
And I'm not just talking about spoken words, I'm talking about written words, I'm talking about signage that's used in the organization. I'm talking about the branding that ultimately infiltrates the minds and the belief systems of your people. You've got to select your words based on the indirect impact you can have on an entire culture within your walls.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think we've all had that where somebody told us a story and it was a little bland and we didn't really picture ourselves there. You choose other words and you can just picture it, you see it, you taste
Beautiful.
it, all the five senses. So
Beautiful.
Words are a channel of indirect impact.
Right.
The second one though, and again, it's a little obvious, bear with us as we unpack it, but the second one is actions, right? That's an area we can have indirect. But what do you mean by actions?
Yeah, well, you're right. It does seem obvious, but it's really, if you're the leader, the leverage of your actions goes way beyond what you ever imagined. It really means thinking much more detail before you take action. Right. Even sometimes how you take action. Now you may say, oh, all that matters is the end result. It's not true. How you take action is going to indicate respect. It's going to indicate your passion. It's going to indicate the purpose that you believe is critical to the mission that's occurring in that moment. It may be a simple yes or no, but if you don't take the opportunity in that action, in the actions that you're making, if you don't take the opportunity to understand the indirect input of it, you've missed a tremendous leverage point in the channels of leadership that you have.
Right, so you have a channel of your words that has indirect impact. You have a channel of your actions that has an indirect impact. But you also have a channel called decisions. The decisions that we make has indirect impact. But what kind of indirect impact does it have?
You know, the decisions that we make reflect consistency in our lives more than we'd like to admit it. And I'm talking even personal decisions, Matt. The things that people see you doing. Sometimes leaders have a tendency to ask one thing of their people and then to do something differently themselves, thinking that their direct influence is all that ever gets seen. You know, they can send out a memo, boom, and then they don't live up personally with their decisions to the mission or to the direct input. That creates an inconsistency here. Decisions that we make give us opportunity to demonstrate consistency through those decisions, and consistency drives momentum in your indirect impact.
Right, so just as an example in terms of decisions, if people feel you've always made decisions that puts others first, puts the team first, puts the mission first,
Great point.
Then they're going to pick up on that. You didn't explain it directly, it was just something you were doing,
they
talking
see it.
about. They
it's
see
evidence,
it.
yeah.
Yep. So we got words, we have actions, we have decisions, all channels of indirect impact, but then the fourth one, and this is a big one, is our priorities. Yeah. So what about our priorities?
You know, priorities, again, you might be thinking, Greg, you know, words, actions, decisions, and priorities, those are all direct impact things. Well, they are, but sometimes what you say isn't what you do. Yeah. Your priorities are going to demonstrate your beliefs. Everybody in your organization, on your team, they're all going to know what you really believe based on the priorities that you demonstrate. Priorities that you demonstrate personally, priorities you demonstrate in your conversations with them, priorities you demonstrate in the decisions that you make toward your customers, toward your vendors, toward your business partners. Every one of those things is going to indicate the amount of leverage that you're going to get, an indirect impact, because of the priorities that are forward facing. If they know what they can expect from you because you've indicated what your priorities are and you're living up to those priorities, you have the massive amount of indirect impact that you're looking for. You know, indirect impact, Matt, to me is like indirect lighting. I mean, that's the way I envision it. You know, it's not a light bulb shining directly in your eyes. Right. It's that light bulb that you don't ever know where that illumination is coming from, but you know that it's there. Yep. You can see the path, you can see around you. You know, have you ever seen pathway lighting or stair lighting, you know, that exists, and you're not really being overwhelmed by light, but you see the direction you need to go. You're kept safe by that. You're kept from falling down and from going down the wrong road. You know, indirect lighting reflects off of other things in the room that are intentional reflectors in order to create a nice, even flow of lighting. Matt, I really think that indirect impact is the definition of the culture of your business.
That's right. And you well know, because you've been in this business, lighting, that indirect lighting is some of the most difficult to design, but it's also, as humans, the kind of lighting that we like the best. And I think the same is true with leadership, right?
Yeah,
it's some of the hardest to do, but it's also some of the best to do. So we have words. Those are channels of, these are the channels of indirect impact. Words, actions, decisions, priorities. And when it comes to priorities, just as an example of that, is when a company says, hey, I really want you to work here. We have a great work-life balance. And it turns out the law firm doesn't feel that way. You still need to put in your 100 hours.
Yeah.
So they're going to see all these things, whether or not we say it or not. So I really think it's so good that we talked about this today, because it does impact company culture. And Greg, what's a challenge if somebody wanted to use as a leader these 4 channels of indirect impact? What would you give them today?
Yeah, the challenge that I'd have for you today is that if you're a leader, your influence is traveling farther than you ever imagined. You think it's just your direct impact. Believe me, it's not. It's your indirect impact. Take personal responsibility. That's my challenge. Take personal responsibility for your culture and the indirect impact that you have on it.
That's awesome. So this is where it becomes your turn, because we'd love, Greg and I, to hear your comments. If you're on YouTube here, we'd love to add your comment below if you would. And one of the things that we'd love to hear is, what's one area, one channel that we've talked about today that you'd love to see applied in your leadership? Let us know about that. And of course, the best conversations happen over at our website, which is morethanbreakthrough.com. And if you'll join us over there, you can comment now. As always, we just want to remind you, if you're not already on our email list, come on over to morethanbreakthrough.com, subscribe, and we will send you leadership resources that you can't get anywhere else. Greg, I'd love it if you'd remind them of our mission today as we head out.
Our mission, Matt, is for you to live with passion, to unlock your purpose, and to become the person you were created